My name is Ethan Rourke. For 20 years, I believed I had everything a man could ever ask for: an enduring marriage, a beautiful wife named Marissa, and a life built brick by brick on shared dreams, sacrifices, and quiet Sunday mornings. Our love had seen its share of storms, but I always thought we were the kind that withstood them, the kind that grew stronger in the aftermath. It wasn't one big moment that changed everything. It was the little things. It began with the perfume, an unfamiliar scent that lingered on her skin when she came home late. Not the kind she ever wore. Not the brand I'd bought her every year for our anniversary. And then the laughter. Low, intimate murmurs behind a locked bathroom door when she said she was on the phone with her sister, though her sister was out of the country. I didn't want to believe it. You don't, not after 20 years. But the heart is a curious thing. It senses when it's being lied to long before the mind catches up. So I started watching. Chapter 1. The Investigation. I didn't hire a private investigator. Not at first. I started simple. Noting dates, times, patterns, a business trip to Chicago that suddenly turned into Denver, a dinner with her book club that ran until 1 a.m., and then one night, I followed her. She said she was going to a friend's birthday dinner. I waited 10 minutes, then got in my car and tailed her. She didn't go to the restaurant she'd mentioned. She pulled into a quiet residential street, killed her lights, and entered a 2-story home I didn't recognize. I parked, waited, watched. An hour passed, then 2. When the front door finally opened again, she stepped out, and he followed. He kissed her like he owned her. I remember the cold in my chest, not anger, not yet. Just a numb, sinking cold. Chapter 2. The Confrontation That Wasn't I Confronted. Her the next morning, or rather I tried. She was in the kitchen, making coffee like nothing had happened. I asked her if she had a good time. She smiled and nodded, said, "Sophie sends her love," I said. "Strange, because the man you were with last night wasn't Sophie." She froze. Not visibly, just enough. Her hand paused as it reached for the mug. Her eyes shifted, but not to me. She stared past me like she was calculating something. "You followed me?" she asked. Her voice was eerily calm. "I did. So what now?" she whispered. That's when it hit me. There was no apology on her face, no guilt, only caution, as if she'd been preparing for this moment for a long time. Chapter 3. Layers of Lies. The man's name was Dr. Lucas Brenner, a psychiatrist, divorced, mid-40s, quiet life. I did hire a PI then. I needed to know how far this went. The findings were worse than I expected. They'd been seeing each other for nearly a year and a half. Weekend retreats, hotel rooms billed under false names. But there was more. Hidden accounts, late-night bank transfers. My name forged on a financial disclosure document I'd never seen before. Marissa wasn't just cheating, she was planning an exit. A strategic, financially devastating exit. She wanted to leave, yes, but only after bleeding me dry. Chapter 4. The True Betrayal. I confronted her again. This time with documents, bank records, emails, photos. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. She sat down, crossed her legs, and sighed. "I was going to tell you." "When? After you emptied the accounts?" "You don't understand, Ethan. You've been checked out for years. You haven't touched me, really looked at me since—" "Don't," I growled. "Don't you dare twist this." Her next words struck like a blade. "You never saw me. You saw a version of me you built in your mind. You fell in love with a memory, not the woman I became." And for a second, I questioned myself, until I remembered that I hadn't signed up for perfection. I'd signed up for partnership, She'd chosen deceit instead. Chapter 5. The Twist. Filed for divorce. Quietly, discreetly. I didn't want drama. But I made one final move before serving her. I met with Dr. Lucas Brenner under a false pretense, posing as a client. I walked into his office, shook his hand, and said, "Tell me, Doc, how does it feel to sleep with your patient's wife?" His face went ghost white. Turns out, he'd been her therapist first. Their relationship had started during her counseling sessions, a clear ethical violation. When I threatened to report him to the board, he panicked. That's when he told me. Something that changed everything. She told me she was planning to make you look unstable, said if you ever found out, she'd already planted doubts, claimed you had mood swings, memory issues. It was part of her plan to get everything. The courtroom silence was deafening the day the verdict came down. Marissa stood in a tailored suit too sharp for someone that hollow. Her eyes searched mine from across the room, not for connection, not for forgiveness, but for calculation. She was still hoping for a loophole. Still believing I was the same man who once overlooked the small betrayals, but I wasn't. The judge's ruling was swift and merciless. Her share of the assets reduced, her spousal support denied on the grounds of fraud, her professional license under review, pending the outcome of a formal ethics investigation. The dam she'd built to keep her secrets in finally broke. Her affair with Lucas wasn't just ethically compromised, it was criminal in some ways. Lucas lost his license when the audio recording of our session surfaced. His name became a stain in every professional registry. And Marissa? She found herself on the cover of legal bulletins as the ambitious attorney who weaponized therapy and marriage to scam her husband. Friends stopped returning her calls. Her firm removed her name from the door overnight. And when she tried to rebrand, to claw her way back into the industry under a consulting role, I made one quiet phone call to the journalist who'd been itching to run the whole story. Chapter 8. The Shadows. She left behind, but with her gone, I had to face what was left of me. It's a strange thing, freedom after betrayal. Like waking from a long sleep only to realize you don't recognize the man in the mirror. I'd given Marissa everything, time, trust, pieces of myself I never asked back. The first months post-divorce were harder than I imagined. The house was too quiet, the bed too cold, the memories always lingering, whispering, maybe you missed something, maybe you failed too. But I leaned into the discomfort. I didn't numb it. I let the pain teach me. I started journaling, therapy. I reconnected with an old friend, Sophia, from my college years, who had gone through her own painful divorce. She understood the silence, the ache. We started with coffee and ended up sharing our ugliest truths beneath city lights. Chapter 9. Her return. Just when I thought the past had finally been buried, she returned. Not in person, but in ink. I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. "Ethan, they've taken everything. I thought I was in control, but I was just a pawn. Lucas turned on me the second the walls closed in. You think I'm the villain? Maybe I am. But it wasn't all lies. There were nights I looked at you and hated myself for what I was doing. I wanted you to find out. I just didn't expect it, to break me when you finally did. If there's a shred of you that remembers who I used to be, please don't destroy what's left of me. M." I sat with the letter for an hour. Then I burned it. I didn't need a ghost trying to haunt her. Way back into my life. Whatever shred of humanity she was grasping at now came too late. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about peace. And peace meant no more ghosts. Chapter 10. Sophia was the kind of woman who listened like it mattered. the kind who didn't rush to fill silences because she respected what they meant. We'd both been betrayed, scarred, but something about us wasn't rooted in pain. It was born from it, like two broken branches intertwining to grow in a new direction. One night over wine and jazz on vinyl, she asked me, "Do you think you'll ever trust again?" "I don't know," I said, "but I know I want to try with you." She didn't smile. She didn't blush. She just reached for my hand, held it like a vow, and said, "That's all I need." Epilogue. Closure. A year passed. I sold the house. Marissa and I bought a modest place near the coast. Sophia moved in a few months later. We didn't rush things. We didn't promise forever. We promised honesty. And that was enough. I never heard from Marissa again. Not directly, but sometimes in local legal forums, her name would pop up, usually in connection to a case she filed and lost. She'd become a cautionary tale in bar exam prep courses, and that suited me just fine. Because in the end, she taught me what not to become. And I learned what real love isn't. Would you like to continue with Sophia and Ethan's relationship, perhaps a new mystery or betrayal lurking ahead, or see the final unraveling of Marissa's life? It was nearly midnight when the knock came, sharp, measured, like someone who wasn't in a hurry, but knew I'd answer. Sophia was already asleep upstairs. I slipped from the bed, pulled on an old flannel shirt, and padded down to the front door. I didn't turn on the porch light, just peered through the peephole. No one. But something was there, an envelope, thick, cream-colored, no name. I opened the door slowly, half expecting a prank, half expecting a ghost, nothing but wind. I picked up the envelope and opened it right, there in the doorway. Inside were two things: a single photograph, grainy, black and white, taken from what looked like a security camera. A note, typed. The photo was of Sophia, at a cafe I didn't recognize, seated across from someone whose face was obscured, but whose hand was unmistakably on hers. Intimate, familiar. The note read, "You thought Marissa was the only one who lied." And below that, a second line. "Ask her about August 14th. My blood turned to ice." Chapter 12. August 14th, it didn't confront her right away. I watched, waited, observed her with new eyes, not because I stopped trusting her, but because I suddenly realized I had never truly verified the version of Sophia she had shown me. The cafe in the photo was Rousseau's, an upscale place downtown. I went there 3 days later, spoke to a waitress who remembered Sophia, said she came in a few times. Usually with a tall man, older, salt and pepper hair, wore expensive suits. I asked for August 14th. The waitress nodded. Yes. They were arguing. She cried. Left alone. He paid and didn't say a word to anyone. A chill snaked down my spine, not because she'd been there with someone, but because that was the same day she told me her aunt had died, and she couldn't meet me for dinner. Chapter 13. The Confrontation. I waited until we were sitting outside under the stars, a bottle of red between us, and the sea hushing the night. "Sophia," I said slowly, "where were you on August 14th? She stiffened, just slightly. It was the kind of shift a liar hopes you won't notice. "That was the day my aunt passed, remember? I told you—" "No," I said. "You told me your aunt passed, but you never mentioned being at Rousseau's with a man." Her face froze, and then, softly, she said the last thing I ever expected. "You weren't supposed to find out." She looked down. Her voice broke. "That man was my ex-husband." The words hit like a slap. She had never mentioned an ex-husband, only a bad breakup. "You lied to me." "I didn't know how to tell you." He reached out after seeing me on the news. In the article about Marissa, he said he missed me, that maybe we could try again. I didn't believe him, but I needed closure. Closure? I snapped. Holding hands over coffee is closure? He kissed me. I didn't kiss back. I walked away. I stared at her. My mind raced, trying to separate truth from performance. Why didn't you just tell me? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move to comfort her. Because I didn't want to lose you, she whispered. You were the first person to see me after the storm and still want to stay. But I got scared. He said I'd always run, and for a moment, I considered it. Chapter 14. The Spy. The next day, I checked my front camera footage from the night the envelope arrived, and I found something I hadn't expected. The figure that approached the door was lean, fast, and unmistakably female. Marissa. She was supposed to be out of state, trying to rebuild. But the woman in the footage moved like a shadow with purpose. She hadn't returned to beg for forgiveness. She came to destroy what I had left. And the photo? She'd sent it not to help me, but to hurt Sophia. Chapter 15. The Truth. Behind the hand a week later, I got a call from a private investigator I'd quietly hired after that photo appeared. He confirmed it. Sophia's ex-husband, Nathaniel Ford, had been following her, tracking her, harassing her quietly, subtly, and worse, he was the one who gave the photo to Marissa. They met at a legal seminar, talked over drinks, compared betrayals. Both saw themselves as victims of people who had moved on, so they struck a deal. She'd help him sabotage Sophia. He'd help her keep me alone. Chapter 16. The Reckoning. Sophia didn't deny it. She wept, apologized, said she didn't know what Nathaniel was planning, that she didn't know Marissa had been involved until it was too late. I believed her, but believing wasn't enough. I need time, I told her. I can't jump from one betrayal into another. I need to know I'm not addicted to broken people. Sophia nodded. She didn't plead, just said, then I'll wait, and I'll show you that I'm not broken, just human. Epilogue. The man in the mirror. I stand alone again, but not shattered. Marissa is gone. Her last attempt to ruin me backfiring spectacularly when I shared her footage with the authorities investigating her ethics violations. Nathaniel? He lost his position at his firm when Sophia pressed charges for harassment. It had been 4 months since Ethan watched Sophia walk away into the uncertain dusk of separation. He was better now, or at least he told himself that every morning. Therapy helped. Solitude helped more. The house was quiet, no echoes of footsteps beside his anymore, but it had stopped feeling empty. It felt still, until the woman in the red scarf appeared. She was seated at the far end of the bookstore cafe, where Ethan spent most of his mornings writing in a battered leather journal. He'd never seen her before, not in the way that counts. She wasn't flashy. She read Rilke. She wore wireframe glasses and ordered tea, not coffee. And every day for a week she sat 2 tables away and never looked up, until the 8th day. You write like someone who's been hurt, she said, her voice velvet and steel. Ethan looked up. Her scarf caught the sunlight, crimson, like a drop of blood in water. You read people like someone who's been watching, he replied. She smiled. There was sadness behind it. Fair. I used to be a profiler, FBI, retired. Now I read for pleasure. And me? You read like someone who's trying to forget something he never talks about. Chapter 18. Her name was Elise Morgan. 42. Divorced. A quiet force of nature. She told Ethan her ex-husband had faked a corporate fraud case to fund his gambling addiction. She lost years cleaning up the mess. The Bureau had quietly retired her when her credibility took a hit for defending him too long. "Funny," she said over dinner a week later. "The people who lie to us always say they did it to protect us. But all they ever protect is their secret." Ethan chuckled. "I spent 20 years believing in a marriage that never really existed. My wife, Marissa, had layers I never saw. And the other one? The woman after? Sophia?" He hesitated. "I still don't know if she was a rebound or something real. Maybe both. But I knew I couldn't start again without being honest with myself first." Elise studied him for a moment, then leaned closer. "Do you want to know the truth about your wife?" "Which one?" "The first one, Marissa. I think I know who she was working with. The man who helped her try to destroy you." Chapter 19. The false face of mercy, Elise, pulled a thin folder from her bag. Inside, documents, phone logs, a list of wire transfers. At the top of the first page, Mercer, David, independent legal consultant. Affiliated, Vanguard Strategies. Specialty, asset restructuring during high-profile divorces. He was no ordinary consultant, Elise said. He worked with fixers, people who specialized in dismantling high-net-worth individuals before the divorce ever reached court. Your wife didn't just cheat on you, she tried to bleed you dry. Mercer was her strategist. Ethan stared at the name. It was like tasting poison all over again. "He disappeared after I exposed their plan," he muttered. "Vanished. Claire, his other client, turned on him too." Elise nodded slowly. "He didn't vanish. He changed his name. He's still working, now under the alias Julian Voss. Want to guess who his next client is?" She slid a photo across the table. "Sophia." The photo was taken 2 weeks ago. Sophia and Julian walking into an upscale law firm in Beverly Hills. Ethan couldn't breathe. She said she was starting over, that she was finding herself. Maybe she is. Or maybe she's playing both sides. Maybe she knew exactly who he was. "No," Ethan muttered. "She wouldn't." But the facts didn't lie. And Elise wasn't wrong. Sophia might have left Nathaniel behind, but that didn't mean she hadn't found a new angle. And if she was working with Mercer again, it meant something else. The game wasn't over. Chapter 21. The setup. With Elise's help, Ethan set a trap. He arranged a meeting through a fake investment firm. The bait? A fictional client named Edward Harrow facing a multi-million-dollar divorce settlement. Elise posed as the intermediary. They rented a penthouse suite, installed hidden cameras, and waited for Mercer to take the bait. He did. He arrived under the name Julian Voss, well-groomed, confident. Elise played him like a violin. And then he made the mistake of referencing Ethan. "We know what happened to your last client," Elise said with a cool smile. "The man whose wife tried to destroy him. We want that kind of strategy." Mercer grinned. "That one? A pity. He was smart, but not smart enough." That was when Ethan stepped out of the shadows. "Hello, David. Miss me?" Chapter 22. Justice. At last. The confrontation was electric. Elise recorded every second. Mercer tried to bluff, but Ethan had the upper hand. The video, the documents, the confession, all of it enough to open a federal case. Elise made a few calls. Within hours, Mercer was in custody. And Sophia? When confronted, she broke down. "I didn't know he was Mercer," she said, trembling. "He said he could help protect my business. I swear to you, Ethan, I didn't know." This time, Ethan could tell she was telling the truth. But it didn't matter. Some wounds didn't heal. Some people didn't come back from the edge. "I don't hate you," Ethan told her, "but I'm done saving people who don't save themselves." Epilogue. The red scarf. Returns weeks passed. Ethan stood on the cliffs outside San Simeon, the wind brushing against his jacket. Elise stood beside him, the red scarf dancing behind her like fire in the wind. You sure you're ready? She asked. For what? For something real, something that doesn't need saving or fixing, just living. He turned to her, smiled. Yeah, I think I am. Together, they walked toward the horizon, not into a perfect future, but into an honest one. And in the end, that was the only kind of love worth chasing. It came in a manila envelope with no return address, slipped under Ethan's door while he was at the cafe with Elise. He almost tossed it in the trash until he saw the handwriting. Flawless cursive. Marissa. He hadn't seen her since the divorce. Settlement, back when she signed away her rights with a chilling lack of emotion and walked out with Mercer at her side. He ripped open the envelope. Inside, a single letter. No greeting, just 3 words at the top. He lied to me. What followed was a chilling confession. Marissa detailed how Mercer convinced her that Ethan had been cheating first, how he showed her doctored photos, forged receipts, and fake messages from a burner phone. I believed him. I wanted to believe him, she wrote, because it was easier to think you betrayed me than face the truth. I was the one who had already fallen. She said Mercer began to control her finances, then her business decisions, then her identity. By the time I realized what he was, it was too late. I tried to get away. He threatened me. Said if I ever turned on him, he'd expose everything, my affair, the fake financial claims, the offshore account in my name I didn't open. But I've made peace with what's coming. They'll find me dead soon. At the bottom, a time-stamped photo of Marissa looking pale and gaunt in a mirror, holding today's newspaper. She had vanished hours earlier. Chapter 24. Elise's Theory. The next morning, Elise read the letter with a tight jaw. She's not lying about the control, she said. Mercer's a manipulator with a savior complex. He picks broken women, elevates them, then destroys them when they try to leave. And the threats? Real. He's got contacts who know how to make people disappear. But now that he's in custody, Ethan stood up. We have to find her. She may already be dead. No, not yet. That photo, the timestamp. She wanted me to find her. Chapter 25. The motel on Hunter's Ridge. Marissa's letter included a coded phrase from a book only the two of them had ever read together. The Shadow over Innsmouth. It referenced a place between tides where the fish don't swim and the birds won't land. Ethan knew exactly where that was. An abandoned motel off Hunter's Ridge Highway. They used to drive past it every summer when they visited Carmel. The place had long since rotted into a skeleton of mildew, vines, and graffiti. But one room had a light on. Room 7. He kicked the door in. Marissa was there, barely conscious, pale, shivering, but alive. Chapter 26. Mercer's last play, Ethan, rushed her to a hospital under an alias. Elise called in favors, old bureau contacts, a retired marshal, a cyber forensic tech. It didn't take long to find the trail. Even from custody, Mercer had been pulling strings, through proxies, offshore lawyers. A woman named Annika Trent, his cleaner, had taken over operations and was planning to silence Marissa. He thinks she'll testify, Elise told Ethan. He's scared, and that makes him sloppy. So we let him think she's dead, Ethan replied. And then we bait the cleaner. The trap worked. Ethan leaked a fake obituary for Marissa. 3 days later, Annika was arrested trying to access a burner-safe deposit box at a bank in San Jose. Inside, the full blackmail archive. Not just Marissa's secrets, others, judges, lawyers, CEOs, even law enforcement officials. Mercer had an empire of blackmail, and now Ethan had the key to it all. Chapter 27. The Trial. The courtroom was packed. Mercer walked in wearing an expensive suit, and the same arrogant smirk he'd worn the night he told Ethan, "She was never really yours." He expected a mistrial, a missing witness. He didn't expect Marissa to walk into the courtroom alive, sober, stronger than she'd ever looked in years. Her testimony tore through the jury like thunder. Then came Elise, laying out the paper trail with surgical precision. Wire transfers, voice recordings, GPS pings, the contents of the safe deposit box. By the time the defense rested, Mercer looked like a cornered animal. He was found guilty on all counts. 43 years without parole. Epilogue. Forgiveness isn't. Forgetting Marissa didn't ask for forgiveness, but Ethan gave it to her anyway. "You were wrong," he told her quietly outside the courthouse. "But so was I. I stopped seeing you a long time before you stopped being yourself. I don't expect you to forget," she said, "but thank you for not letting me die." Invisible. She moved to Oregon, joined a rehab support group, sent him updates every few months. Sophia moved on. Elise stayed. And Ethan? He finally published his memoir. Title, The Woman in the Red Scarf. A story about betrayal, justice, and starting over. Would you like to explore Elise and Ethan's life together after the trial? Or a spin-off where Elise reopens a cold case from her FBI days that somehow ties back to Mercer's past crimes? Months had passed since Mercer's conviction. The world had returned to a strange semblance of normality. Ethan was writing again, this time, fiction. Elise had officially resigned from the FBI, but her mind never really left the bureau. 1. Rainy afternoon, while organizing storage boxes in Ethan's attic, Elise came across an old, dust-covered folder that didn't belong to either of them. "Where did this come from?" she asked, holding it up. Ethan frowned. "That's not mine." Inside was a photograph, black and white, a young girl, about 6, standing barefoot in a field, eyes wide, mouth slightly parted as if she were screaming, when the camera snapped. On the back, property of Vance, SC Facility Archives, 1987. Elise went cold. "Vance," she whispered. "Oh my God. You know that name?" "Yes, Elliot Vance. He was a government contractor, psych operations. Behavioral modification research. He disappeared decades ago. But Mercer once mentioned a man who taught him how to control emotions like a scalpel. I thought he was just quoting a mentor." She sat on the floor, knees weak. "If this is real, we might have just opened a door into something much darker than anything Mercer ever did." Chapter 29. The Missing Facility. The folder included a series of coordinates scribbled on a napkin tucked into the manila sleeve. They led to South Carolina, deep woods, no records, no road. What Elise found when she dug deeper was a ghost facility, a psychiatric hospital decommissioned in the early 90s after a fire allegedly destroyed it. Except, it was never registered with the Department of Health, and no fire had ever been reported. "This wasn't just a hospital," Elise said. "It was a test site." Ethan frowned. "For what?" "For controlling people, breaking them, rebuilding them. This photo, this child, she may have been a subject. Mercer wasn't the architect of manipulation. He was a student." Chapter 30. Elise's Cold Case. This wasn't the first time Elise had seen that photo. During her early FBI years, she worked a cold case out of Charleston. 5 missing children from the same rural county. No bodies, no leads. The file was buried, top clearance, shut down within weeks, but she had kept a copy of the case file. Something about it never sat right. Now the photo matched one of those children. Her name was Abigail Fenley, missing since 1987. Elise couldn't let it go, and neither could Ethan, because Mercer's encrypted drive, now in federal evidence, had a folder marked Abby, locked with a double password, one they couldn't crack, until they tried the phrase, "property of Vance." It opened. Inside, hours of footage, children being interviewed, hypnotized, manipulated, and at the center of it all, a man in the shadows, voice distorted, Elliot Vance. Chapter 31. Someone is still watching. 3 days after opening the file, Ethan noticed something strange. His phone's GPS had logged coordinates he never traveled to. A strange red truck parked across the street for 2 nights in a row, and then a text. "Stop digging. Not your story anymore." Unknown. Number Elise's FBI contacts had no record of Vance's death. "That's because he's not dead," she said. "He's hiding, watching, maybe even continuing the work." Mercer might have been a pawn in a much larger game. And then came the chilling realization. If Mercer was a weapon, who pulled the trigger? Chapter 32. Elise makes a choice. Elise stood at a crossroads. She could hand everything over to the Bureau, walk away, and let her past finally rest. Or she could reopen the investigation, privately, carefully. "You don't owe the Bureau anything," Ethan said softly. "But you do owe yourself the truth." She looked at him, eyes fierce. "Then let's go find it." They returned to Elise's safe house in Sonoma County, a weather-worn cabin nestled beneath redwoods, far from cell towers and prying eyes. It was there, inside an old footlocker Elise hadn't opened in years, that she pulled out something Ethan had never seen before, a thumb drive labeled in faded ink, Whisper File, DM 2009. "I wasn't supposed to keep this," Elise said, staring at it like it might catch fire. It was collected from a raid on a private facility in Maine, shut down before the Bureau could finish their investigation. Everything was wiped. Except this. Inside were encrypted dossiers, audio logs, photos, heavily redacted transcripts. One file stood out, a blurry video time-stamped May 7, 2009. In the footage, a teenage boy restrained in a chair, eyes unfocused, repeating phrases under his breath. "He told me to push her. She wasn't my sister. They said it would make the voices stop." Elise froze. "That's Mercer," she whispered. "At 16? She nodded, expression dark. "And the man behind the camera, the voice giving instructions." Her voice cracked. "That's Vance." Chapter 34. The boy with no past. Mercer had no official history before age 18. No school records, no medical history. Just a sudden appearance in Boston with forged documents and a fake identity. Now Elise knew why. "He was one of them," she said. "A prototype. Groomed. Programmed." "So he never stood a chance," Ethan muttered. "No, but he still made his own choices. He turned into something worse." They dug deeper. The Whisper File contained other names, faces. Most were victims. Some were survivors. One stood out. Jonathan Riles, former linguistics professor, presumed dead after a suspicious fire in 2011. But in one blurry video frame, he appeared beside Vance, smiling, and wearing a military-grade badge. Chapter 35. The voice on the tape 3 days later, Ethan received a voicemail from a number marked unknown. It was only 4 seconds long. "You were never the target." She was. And then silence. Elise's jaw tightened. "They're playing a long game. Vance never wanted Mercer for his power. He wanted access, through Marissa, through the people Mercer blackmailed, through me." "You think this was all to get to you?" "No. I think I was one of many. But something changed. When I left the Bureau, I broke the pattern. Now they need to erase what's left." Chapter 36. The Keyhole Safe-In. An abandoned train. Depot outside Reading, Elise and Ethan followed coordinates buried in the Whisper File metadata. There, behind a rusted locker, they found a wall safe, old-fashioned, mechanical. Elise turned the dial in silence. 1-9, Ethan blinked. Today's date. The safe hissed open. Inside, dozens of Polaroids, tapes, and notebooks, all marked with dates and names they recognized. Claire Duval, Richard Holtz, David Mercer, Marissa Lane. Each dossier showed the subjects under surveillance, not just after their betrayals, but before, months, years. Some entries included annotations, like response to isolation, compliant, observed empathy threshold low, recommend pairing with dominant personality. Subject 42E shows high betrayal potential, schedule phase 2. Ethan stared at the last page, his own name. Subject 62E, too stable, threat to propagation, must be broken emotionally to open pattern. Chapter 37. The Nightmare. Theory Elise backed away from the table, voice trembling. Ethan, this whole thing, the affair, Marissa, Mercer, the manipulation, it was all part of something bigger. They weren't targeting just us, they were testing us. Like rats in a maze. No, like bombs, waiting to explode. Chapter 38. The Man in Prague. The final page of the Whisper file listed a name neither had seen before. Jonah Slate, operative, last seen in Prague, 2020. Former asset handler, now in hiding. If anyone can tell us how to kill this thing, Elise said. It's him. Ethan met her eyes. Then let's find him. They arrived in Prague under aliases. Ethan was now Simon Black, a travel writer on assignment. Elise had reverted to one of her old bureau covers, Ava Lansing, corporate security advisor. Their contact? A former Czech intelligence officer named Nadia, who owed Elise a favor from a covert rescue op years ago. Nadia met them in a quiet cafe near Wenceslas Square. "You're looking for Jonah Slate?" she asked, her voice low beneath the chatter of tourists. Elise nodded. "You?" Said he resurfaced? Briefly, last seen in Zhizkov. He stayed off-grid until 2 weeks ago when someone accessed a dormant account tied to his alias. That flagged him. Now he's running again. And Vance? Nadia sipped her espresso. Vance doesn't run. He hunts. Chapter 40. The Crypt Apartment. They found the apartment Slate had used. A crumbling flat tucked into a dead-end alley, marked by graffiti and forgotten windows. Inside, the air was stale, the furniture sparse, but the walls, they were covered in maps, strings, handwritten notes. "My God," Ethan whispered. "This looks like a war board." Elise scanned the scribbled notes. Her eyes landed on one phrase written repeatedly. The Carousel Protocol, Phase 3 activated. "What is that?" Ethan asked. "It's not a name," Elise said slowly. "It's a sequence, a cycle of emotional triggers designed to destroy loyalty, rebuild control, and isolate the subject. It's what they did to Mercer." Then she froze. "There's a file here with my name on it." She opened it. Inside was a report. Detailed notes about her FBI missions, her marriage, even her confrontation with Marissa. Vance had tracked every choice she made. At the bottom, scrawled in different ink, "She's the anomaly. Ethan is the key." Ethan took a step back. What the hell does that mean? Chapter 41. Jonah Slate. They found him 2 nights later in a church ruin outside Prague, living like a ghost among shadows and scaffolding. He was older now, grayer, but his eyes were still sharp. When Elise approached, he didn't flinch. "You shouldn't have come." "We didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," he growled. "Until Vance takes that away." Slate led them into the catacombs beneath the church, where candlelight danced along cracked stone. There, he told them the truth. Vance didn't just break people, he installed them. Agents in plain sight. assets embedded into marriages, friendships, families, emotional minds waiting for activation. Are you saying Mercer wasn't working alone? Slate shook his head. He was never working alone. He was just the fuse. But the real bomb, he looked at Ethan, then Elise, is still live. Chapter 42. The shattered mirror, Jonah handed them a flash drive. This has everything. Phase 3 details, targets, timelines, but there's a catch. What? You're on it, Ethan. Ethan froze. I was never recruited. You didn't have to be. You were built, conditioned. Your father, Dr. Leonard Case, worked under Vance in the early 80s. Behavioral genetics program. You think it's a coincidence that your empathy, resilience, and psychological profile match the anomaly Elise created when she chose you over protocol? Elise stepped forward. You're saying Ethan was part of the experiment from the beginning? Slate nodded. He was the endgame, the one variable Vance couldn't predict, which makes him the biggest threat. Chapter 43. Marissa's message as they processed the shock. Elise's phone buzzed. An encrypted email. No name, no sender, just a single attachment, a video message. Marissa. She looked different, older, haunted, but alive. If you're seeing this, I'm not running anymore. Vance made us betray you, Elise. All of us. You, Ethan. None of it was supposed to last. But I broke protocol. And now, they're coming for me. She paused, breath trembling. There's something in Vienna, an old train tunnel, Sector 9 Delta. I left the files there, the original protocol, Vance's signature, the only thing that can bring this whole system down. If you want to finish this, you'll have to go to where it all began. The train clattered into Wien Hauptbahnhof at 2:17 a.m., slicing through the night like a scalpel. Elise and Ethan moved silently through the shadows, each footstep echoing off the cathedral-like ceilings of the near-empty station. Ethan carried the flash drive. Elise had memorized the grid coordinates Marissa whispered in the video. Sector 9 Delta, South Tunnel, behind the red gate, no light, no sound, just memory. They hailed no taxi. They walked, past the sleeping museums, over the Danube, until they reached the abandoned, simmering depot, a sprawling underground network that hadn't seen a train since the Cold War. If this is a trap, Ethan muttered, his voice low. Then we spring it on our terms, Elise said, drawing her sidearm. Chapter 45. The Red Gate. They descended into the tunnel, rusted rail lines, peeling tile walls. Rats scuttled through debris like nervous informants, unwilling to speak. Sector 9 Delta was deeper than they thought, a sublevel beneath even the maintenance tunnels. Then they found it, a red iron gate, its paint chipped like dried blood. Locked, of course, but Elise handled it. The old lock popped with a satisfying metallic sigh. Inside was a room no bigger than a monk's cell, a cot, a desk, and a wall covered in documents. Elise gasped. These are psychological profiles, names, spouses, children. Ethan moved to the far wall and froze. There, beneath a layer of yellowed parchment, was a photograph. Elise Vance and Ethan's father. Chapter 46. The Father Protocol. The notes were maddening. Half in code, half in French, but the file labeled Project Anima Ethan C was crystal clear. Subject born of emotional stability. DNA sequenced for reactive empathy. Objective, monitor subject's trajectory under emotionally manipulative strain. Spouse assigned to calibrate. Ethan's blood ran cold. Assigned? He whispered. Elise was already shaking her head, eyes wide with horror. No, Ethan, I swear to God. But Ethan was backing away from her, chest heaving. You were my handler? No, that's what they wanted me to be. But I chose you. They didn't plan that part. Then what part of our life was real, Elise? The dinners? The vacations? The way you looked at me like I was your world? Was that just calibration? I gave up everything for you. Vance disowned me. I burned my clearance. I walked away because I loved you. Then why did you lie about Marissa? The words hit her like a slap. Ethan took a shaky breath. You said you didn't know she was alive. But that video, she said you knew. You knew she'd broken protocol. You let me believe she was dead. Because if I told you the truth, you'd come after her. You'd go looking, and they'd kill you, Ethan. Vance would have turned you into a ghost before you got within 10 feet of the truth. A silence fell between them, one not born of hatred, but of something worse, uncertainty. Chapter 47. The Dead. Don't vanish, a sound broke the tension. A footstep. They turned, guns up, breath caught. But it wasn't Vance, it was Marissa. She stood, in the threshold soaked from the storm, eyes hollow. You shouldn't have come. Ethan stared. You're alive. Barely, she rasped. But if you're here, it means he's coming. He knows. Elise stepped forward. The flash drive. Your message. Bait, Marissa said. Necessary bait. You had to come here, both of you, or this doesn't work. What doesn't? Ethan asked. Vance's collapse. She turned and lifted her shirt slightly, revealing a scar and beneath it, a small, blinking implant. I'm a transmitter now. Vance used me to track emotional anomalies, but I flipped it. You walking into this room just sent a signal. Ethan's stomach dropped. A signal to who? To the ones who want him gone. You think Vance worked alone? No. He frightened people. People with power. They needed proof. You're the proof. Then, gunshots echoed in the tunnel. Not toward them, away from them. He's here, Elise whispered. Marissa smiled. Then let the carousel end.